Hey everyone! In this video today, as part of my sort of Pride tutorial series, I wanted to show you guys how to make a very fast and quick pattern. I am going to be using the bisexual colors for this one, but honestly this would work for so many different Pride colors. Like you could have polyamory, you could have even like asexual, you could do like the purple, gray, and white, or even the aromantic or agender and use green and gray instead. You have your pansexual flag even, or if you want to use any other colors, then go for it. There's just so many possibilities to work off of with this pattern. It's a very quick one to work up, so if you want to learn how to make this, then keep on watching. So for this bracelet, you are going to need your sort of background strand, which I am just using black here, and then since I am using the bisexual color palette, I have my pink, purple, and blue here. You will need 5 strings of your black, and then 1 string for each of your 3 colors. As far as measuring goes, I have made this one about 32 inches, and a lot of my colors are getting used up way faster than my black strands, but regardless of having these shorter colored strands, I think 32 inches should be fine, and that is for about a 6-inch bracelet, maybe a little less. I am interjecting at the end of the tutorial to let you know that you definitely want to measure your colors quite a bit longer than your black strands, because you will run out of them even if you make your strings plenty long enough. And here I have the diagonal shape started on my bracelet. This is completely optional. You do not have to do this to your bracelet. You can just start up the pattern. But if you want to learn how to make this diagonal star, I'll have a video up in the corner up there, and you can learn how to do that. Now, regardless of whether or not you have that shape start, from left to right, you want to have all your black strands first, and then you will have your pink, purple, and blue. So first off, with your outermost left strand, you want to make forward knots across all of your strings to the right of it, just like you would a candy stripe. Now, if you don't have a shape start here, you will want to make sure that you are making these knots in an intentional sort of diagonal line like a traditional candy stripe is. That is just going to help shape up your bracelet way easier. If you knot your strings straight across like you would an alpha, you would eventually get the sort of downward angle like a traditional candy stripe, but the beginning of your bracelet just might look a little bit more messy. And now we are going to come back to our outermost left strand, and we are going to do 3 forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it, which will only be your black strands here. And then again, come back to your outermost left strand, and this time you are just going to do 2 forward knots onto the 2 strings to the right of it. And then one more time, come back to your outermost left strand and just do a forward knot onto the string to the right of it. And now we can move in on our 3 colors here. We're going to take the first color that is on the right side of all of our black strands, so in this case it'll be my pink strand, and we are just going to do 3 backward knots onto the next 3 strands to the left of it. And now we're going to come back to our second color in line, which will be purple for me. And again, we are going to do 3 backward knots across the next 3 strands to the left of it. And one more time, we'll come back to our third color here, and again, do 3 backward knots onto the next 3 strands to the left of it. And then to finish off this section, we are now going to come over to our black strings on the right here, and we are going to pick up the second strand from the right side, and we are going to do a forward knot onto the strand to the right of it. And then we're going to move over to our third strand from the right, and we are going to do forward knots on the next 2 strands to the right of it. And then one last time, move over to your 4th strand from the right and make 3 forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it. And now we're going to move back over to our outermost left strand all by itself here, and we are going to do forward knots across all of the strings to the right of it to bring it to the right side. Now we are going to start on our sort of left triangle piece here. So very easy stuff. We're going to take our outermost left strand and we are going to do forward knots across the next 6 strings to the right of it. And then on the 7th strand here, we are going to do a forward backward knot. Come back to our newest outermost left strand, and this time we are going to do forward knots across the next 4 strings to the right of it, and then on the 5th one here we will do a forward backward knot. And yet again, come back to our outermost left strand here and make forward knots onto the next 2 strings to the right of it. And then on the 3rd one, do a forward backward knot. Once again, take your outermost left strand, and this time you will just do a forward backward knot onto the string to the right of it. And now we are going to bring all of our colors back over to the left side. So from the left, first in line, I'm going to pick up my blue strand here, and we are going to do backward knots onto the next 2 strands to the left of it. And then we're going to move on down to the next color in line, which will be our purple strand, and we are going to do backward knots onto the 4 strands to the left of it to bring it over to the left side. And one final time with our 3rd color over on the right side here, we are going to do backward knots across all of these strings to the left of it to bring it to the left side. And now, stretch out your fingers and take a quick drink if you need to, because we are halfway done with the pattern. Now this next section here is just like what we did up here, but this time we're kind of flipping and reversing the color order and the knots and everything. So we're gonna take this time our outermost right strand and do backward knots across all of the strings to the left of it. And now this time we are going to come back to our outermost right strand, and we are going to do backward knots across the next 3 strands to the left of it. And then again, come back to your outermost right strand and do 2 backward knots this time across the next 2 strands to the left of it. And one more time, newest outermost right strand, 1 backward knot onto the string to the left of it. And now we are going to move over from the right side and pick up our first color in line, which will be our blue strand. And we are going to do 3 forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it. And then pick up your next color in line and do 3 forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it. And one more time, move over to your third color and again do forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it. And now we are going to come back to our second strand from the left, and we are going to do a backward knot onto the string to the left of it. And then move over to your third strand in line and do 2 backward knots onto the 2 strands to the left of it. And then move over to that 4th black strand and do 3 backward knots onto the next 3 strands to the left of it. And now we are going to come back to our outermost right strand here, and we are going to do backward knots across all of the strings to the left of it to bring it to the left side. So we are going to pick up our outermost right strand here, which will be my blue color, and we are going to do backward knots onto the next 6 strands to the left of it, and then on this final one here we will do a backward forward knot. I'm gonna have to start subbing in string. So now we are going to come back to our outermost right strand, and we are going to do backward knots onto the next 4 strings to the left of it. Then on this 5th one here, we are going to do a backward forward knot. And I'm going to do an alpha color adding method to add in new string to this bracelet. And again, we're going to come back to our outermost right strand here, and we are going to do 2 backward knots onto the next 2 strands to the left of it. Then on this third one here, we are going to do a backward forward knot. And again, another join. And then one last time, come back to your outermost right strand and do a backward knot onto the string to the left of it. And now we can finally bring all of our colors back to the right side. So we're going to take our first color from the right, which will be our pink strand, and we're going to do 2 forward knots onto the 2 strands to the right of it. And then we are going to pick up our next color in line, which will be our purple strand here, and we are going to do forward knots across all of the strings to the right of it. And then finally, we're going to pick up our last color over here, which is my blue. And we are going to do forward knots across all of the strings to the right of it. This one I also should add string to. I don't know if I'll make it to the end. And that is finally the whole pattern completed. It is much slower to teach, but once you have this pattern down, it is just so fast to work up and so easy. The beginning of this bracelet took me like up to an hour, maybe a little bit longer because I was taking a lot of breaks, but it is such a cute design on its own, and adding this sort of pride flair to it just makes it so much cooler, especially when you can make like the actual order of the flag. Like, that's just so cool. Of course it does alternate a little bit, but I think no matter what, it still gets the point across that you have whatever pride you wanted to add to this bracelet. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video today. Thank you so much for following along. I will have chapters in the description and on the video, so that way you can watch this video from the very beginning, and it'll all be the same steps no matter what. There is no color changing because we did the full set. So again, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out all of my other Pride videos in this series, and I will see you in the next one.